Hello everyone and welcome to Nintex Technology Training. I'm Emily Slagle and I'm a training specialist here at Nintex. I've worked with Nintex products for several years and some of you may know me from my time as a member of the support team. So now let's jump over to my environment and I'll show you the Cascading Lookups feature in action. Okay, so here we are on my training site, and first I'm going to give you an overview of a Cascading Lookups form I've already created, using the example we talked about earlier for a store feedback form. I've already created the list that we need for the form, including the country and the store feedback lists. So in the country list, you'll see I've added items for all the countries that our stores are located in. And for the stores list, you'll see the list of all the cities where the stores are located at and associated the appropriate country for each one. Now it's important to note here, without the Cascading Lookups functionality, the person filling out my form would be required to select a city and would have to sort through this large list of locations to find the one that they want. It's not very convenient, and that probably will make them less likely to fill out the form. I know that I've been guilty of backing out of a feedback form a couple of times just because there was too much to fill out and sort through. Now, in the case that if this form were mandatory, the absence of the Cascading Lookups functionality would make the form filling experience more difficult and time intensive, and really the fastest route to getting a form filled out with the correct information is to make it quick and easy for the user. So then I have the store feedback list here. And this is where we want to build our form, where the form will be filled out and submitted, and where we'll track the information collected from the form. And since I've already built the form, my list is ready to start receiving feedback. So if I click on New Item, we'll see the form that I've created, which already has the country and store fields displayed here. I also got a little fancy and customized my form a bit, including a choice option for the rating on a scale from 1 to 5, and a place for comments, and also a place to fill in my name. So I'll begin filling out my form with first my name, and then I'll select my country from the drop-down for the country menu, and then I'll look for my store by selecting the store drop-down. Now you'll notice that this is only displaying the cities that are related to the country I selected. If I select a different country, this will automatically update the stores that are available in that country. Being able to show filtered data on the fly like this is really handy for so many different types of forms, and it's what the Cascading Lookups functionality allows us to do. So I can go ahead and finish filling out my feedback form for the store, and at this point I could hit Save to submit the form. But what if I have multiple stores I want to provide feedback on? Well, this is where the repeating section helps us. You'll notice that my form fields here are contained within this box with this dotted line around it, which I actually customized to look this way. You can choose different colors and line types, or even choose to hide it completely. But this box actually indicates which fields on my form are included in the repeating section. At the bottom left, there's a link here that says Give More Feedback. And yes, I customized that too, but by default it says Add New Row. When you click on this link, you'll see I have a fresh set of fields to fill out for my form. And from here I can go ahead and select the fields, just as I did above, and fill out my form and my feedback for the next store. Gives me all the same functionality with the Cascading Lookups and our choice fields. If I decide I want to remove one, I just simply click this little X here. And then one last thing to show you for this form is how we can customize the way we display the information for these fields. So for example, I can have a drop down here, but I can choose to have my store field be option buttons. And you'll notice that these update automatically, just like they did before, depending on the country that I selected. So each time I change the country, it'll show the different stores that are available. And this form design is completely flexible. I can mix and match, having one of these be option buttons and the other one a drop-down menu, or both as option buttons or both as drop-down menus. And the workup functionality works exactly the same for either option. And the same goes with the repeating section. If I select to give more feedback, I'll get all the same functionality with the drop-downs and my option buttons. So this will also work for multiple values. If I've selected the option to allow multiple choice, I have the option to display this information as checkboxes or in a list format. This is really useful because the lookups will still filter based on what was selected. So if I have multiple countries, all of the countries I've selected will show up in the store option. So if I select just one, I only see those options. And if I select 2 or 3, I see all of the options available for the ones that I selected. And once again, this functionality works with the repeating section. So if I click on another line to get more feedback, I have all the same functionality here where I can select multiple checkboxes and I'll see all the options available for the ones I selected. So now that you've seen an overview of how the form looks, let's take a look at how it's configured. To do this, I'm going to go to my store feedback list, which is where I want to build the form, and click on the List tab, and then click on the Nintex Forms button here in the ribbon. So this brings me to the Nintex Forms Designer. We have our design canvas for the form here in the middle, and the toolbox for all the forms controls we can use on the left. On the right, there's some form options here, and this will display different information depending on which control you have selected, allowing for really quick editing. So by default, it's just showing the form options here, but you'll see when I select a control, it'll automatically update the options that are available here. So first, you'll see all these controls I have on the left here, and these are label controls located over here in the toolbox. And this is what you use to name your fields. So you can put whatever text you want here, and this is what will show up as the name next to your field. And then we have the controls here for the country and the store, and both of these are using the list lookup control. And this control is located under the SharePoint section in the toolbox. So when you select that, you'll see the list lookup control right here. So now we'll take a closer look at how to configure each of these list lookup controls, including how to associate them with the proper lists, and how to change how they appear on the form like we saw earlier with the option buttons and the multiple checkboxes. This is also where we configure the Cascading Lookups functionality. We'll create a dependency between the two controls and configure the store control to filter out the available options depending on which country was selected. So first we'll take a look at the country control, and I'll open up the configuration screen by double-clicking. And so the first thing that we want to do is give this control a name. And I've chosen to name it country control since it's the control for the country. It is important that you name it something simple and relevant to the control so that you can easily identify it later. In this case, we're going to be referring to it when we configure the store control, so it's important that it's easy for us to find and recognize. And since this is a list lookup control, that means we need to tell it which list we want to look at to retrieve the data that's going to be displayed. To do this, we're going to select the source list dropdown, and this will show all of the available lists on your site. And in this case, since it's for the country, we're going to select country. So at this point, there's no further options we're required to configure for this control. However, if we wanted to change the display settings, we'd look under the appearance section. And then here we can change the display format to either a drop-down list or option buttons. Also, if you wanted to allow multi-select, you would choose to allow multiple values here. You would select yes. And this will automatically update the options that display in the display format to show the ones that apply to multiple select, which are checkboxes or list. So that's all we need to do for the country control. Now let's take a look at the store control. So for the store field on our form, we're using another list lookup control like I did for country, and I'll double click on it to open the configuration screen. And we're going to start off by configuring it the same way with giving it a name. I gave this one store control. And you'll also want to choose the source list, which is the list it's going to look at to display its data. You click on this list, and once again, you'll see all your SharePoint lists available. And I've selected store. And now from here, if we were just to configure these settings, my form would display every store I've entered into the store list, giving us that big long list to sort through. Since we want the store to be filtered based on the country selected, I need to go into the filtering options. And you do that by selecting the filtering drop-down here. So for the filter available selections option, I would choose by a control's value, since we want to filter by the country control. And then for the filtered by control, I would select my country control. And you can see here why it's important to name your controls easy to recognize names so we can easily find the right control. Since I gave mine the name country, I know this is the right one, and I can select that one. And then finally for the where field, this is asking me which field in the list I want to apply the filter to, so I've entered country. And so that's all I need to do for the filtering section. And these filtering options are what allow us to have the Cascading Lookups functionality in our form. Since we've configured the store field to filter based on that country, the store will now filter out all of the available options depending on which country was selected. So now that we're done setting up the controls for country and store, the last thing we'll take a quick look at is the repeating section control, which is located under the general section here in the controls toolbox. And so you'll notice here once again the blue dotted lines around the controls on my form. This is actually the repeating section control. There's nothing to configure by default. You simply just add it to the designer. And then whichever controls you drop into that section will be a part of the repeating section. You'll notice when I drop other controls within it, it highlights a different color to let me know that that control is going to be added to that repeating section. If you want to customize how the repeating section looks like I did here with the dotted lines, you simply just double click on it to configure like you would any other control. And then under the formatting section, you have options to change the border style and the width and the color. And there's a few other options here so you can really fully customize how it appears on your form. So now we're all finished designing our form with the Cascading Lookups functionality. Before publishing it for use, I can preview the form first to make sure everything is configured properly. To do this, I click on the preview button here in the ribbon, and then click Generate Preview. This will give us a functioning preview of the form so we can test everything out and make sure it's working as intended. Everything looks good, so I'm going to go ahead and publish. So I'm going to close the preview, and then I will select the Publish button in the ribbon, and then click Publish. Now let's go back to our list and test it out. So now I'm back at my store feedback list, and I click on a new item, and now we'll see I can fill out the form, and then I click Save to submit the form. And that's it. And now you see a new item has been created in my list for my form, and when I select it, I'll see all of the data that was filled out for the form. So that's the Cascading Lookups functionality. As you can see, it's really useful and really easy to set up and use. And so that wraps up our overview of using Cascading Lookups and Nintex forms for Office 365. This can be helpful for making your forms less difficult and time-intensive to fill out. Try checking out the Cascading Lookups feature for yourself to see how it can work for you. And also be sure to check out the rest of our videos on how to manage and get the most out of Nintex products. Thanks for watching.